Over the past several months, I have seen so many comments on social media where people are displaying hatred toward wealthy people just because they're wealthy. Some of these comments have really shocked me. Others I find more understandable. In this video, I'm going to read some of those comments to you. We'll talk about them, and we'll talk about how this relates to you and the handbags that you carry. Stay tuned. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags and small goods to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you enjoy. And one of the perks of subscribing to my channel is you get to see my community post on your YouTube homepage, where I post deals, discount codes, sales, and rare finds related to these beautiful things we love. So this phenomenon of people hating wealthy people just because they have money, I'm going to boil it down and call it wealth hate for the sake of this video. I first noticed these wealth hate comments this past summer. You remember when that submersible called the Titan, the one that took people on like tourist trips down to the Titanic, that imploded? There were 5 people on the Titan, and of course they all died. And what shocked me is the massive amount of comments that I saw on social media from people who were happy about it, people who were laughing about it and saying they were glad these people died. And I'm thinking, what did they ever do to you? I took screenshots back then because I wanted to make a video back then, but it was June, we were in the throes of, I had just finished my teaching job, and we were in the middle of packing to move across the country. So I took some screenshots to do this video another day. Here we are. Couple examples from those comments. One person said, "Some billionaires played themselves, boo-hoo." Another person expressed that they were confused about why people would put laughing emojis. I felt the same way. And someone responded to that, because they're billionaires. Okay. And then here's another comment, pardon me while I'm looking down to read it here. Someone wrote, "Just remember, these people can afford to help sick children, feed the poor, house the homeless, but instead they chose to go on a boat ride." Now that comment ties into a video I made a while back. It was called something like "Why I Never Give to Charity," and it was tongue-in-cheek, because I get comments like that because of my handbags. And I'm sure some of you have received comments like this too, so let me know in the description box below what kinds of things people have said to you. They're so quick to judge when they see you displaying money in certain ways, like sometimes when you carry certain handbags and they know what those bags are and they know they're expensive. But I've received comments before where people have told me, you know, you shouldn't buy those handbags, you should donate that money to charity instead. And my problem with that, and my problem with the comment that said they could do all these things to help people with their money, instead they chose to go on a boat ride. Problem there is that these people who make these comments, they don't use their brains, and they don't realize that those of us who buy handbags can also donate to charity. We can do both things. And billionaires, well, we've heard those Titan tickets were $250,000 a piece. If you're a billionaire, $250,000 is not that much money to you. So yeah, I think they can afford to take that boat ride and also do other things with their money. And by the way, people don't know what we do with our money. Like, they know that we spend money on handbags, but they don't know whether or not we're giving to charity. And they also don't know any of the people that were on that boat to be able to say what they did. And by the way, just a very quick Google search on these people showed that they did make a lot of positive contributions to the world in their lives. Now, the reason that I'm doing this video now, it's not all about the Titan and the people on the Titan. I was on social media again, Facebook. I scroll Facebook, and I'm in lots of different groups, and somebody posted this comment just a few days ago that blew my mind. The comments section really blew my mind, and that is what prompted me to do this video now. So here's the original post. This person says, "Okay, I never post, but I feel like I have to. I grew up basically poor. Does anyone else have a slight/hidden never said hatred/strong dislike for rich people?" And then they go on to say, "especially those who were born into it and didn't deserve it." And oh boy, the comment section. You know, one of the things about asking a question like that that is very negative, do you hate rich people? And they gave no explanation for why anyone would hate rich people or why they do. They just said rich people. So you're just hating them purely on the fact that they have money. money, right? And you're also implying that you don't. So we'll get back to some of that in a minute. There's so much to say on this topic. I could do multiple videos, but I've tried to condense it down. I read through the comments, and there were some people who felt the way I did and brought up the fact that no, why would I hate rich people? I don't know them. I don't know them as individuals. I'm not going to generalize a group of people based on just the fact that they have money. I'm not going to make a bunch of assumptions about them because of that one fact. The rest of the comments, though, were very negative, and that's one of the things, started to say this a second ago and didn't finish my thought, that happens when you put out a question or a comment with this much negativity in it on social media. What you're met with generally in return is people feeding off that and just throwing out more and more and more negativity. So I read through the comments, and for me, they broke down into about 3 different categories. The first one, and this has less to do with hating people and more to do with some of the mentality behind maybe some resentment, or certainly a lack of understanding, I think. The first category is that no job is worth that much money. Like, nobody should be paid a salary that big that you are a mega multimillionaire or a billionaire. Some of the comments were, no job, even well done, is worth $39 million plus a year. Someone else said there's not a CEO on earth that's worth 400 times what their employees make. Now here's my take on that. While I understand that concept, I get it, it's not true. Here's why. First of all, there are jobs where you make that much money. So yeah, I mean, that's just factually untrue, right? That no job is worth that much. If a job pays that much, then it is worth that much. It's a very similar concept to a product you're trying to sell is only worth as much as someone is willing to pay for that product. Same thing with a job. It's worth as much as you're able to earn from it. And I would argue that in the jobs that pay that much, that generally those people have contributed something significant or created something significant in order to bring that kind of money to them. And often those people are working multiple jobs, not just one, like most of the rest of us do. I would also point out, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I'm no expert on this subject, but it's my understanding that when somebody talks about someone being worth so many millions of dollars or billions of dollars, it doesn't mean they have that much in their bank accounts. That number is inclusive of lots of different things. Assets, the money in their bank account, stocks, stakes that they hold in companies, investments, all kinds of things. I would also say that it doesn't necessarily mean the people who are paid that much are working any harder than people in jobs that pay very little. That's one of the things that's a fallacy in American culture anyway. We have this idea of you work hard, you can pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and you can be a success. That's really not true. There's a lot more to getting to that kind of financial success than just working hard. So many people work really hard every day and never see anywhere near that kind of money. And then, like I said too, it's also about what the person is able to bring in. So it's not just the job and the amount of work that you do. And I think a good example of this is like teachers. I can talk about that because I was a teacher, versus professional athletes. I've heard a lot of people say teachers should be paid more, and that's true. And I've also heard a lot of people say pro athletes that are making all these millions of dollars, that's ridiculous. It's too much money for that kind of job. Here's the thing though. Teachers, I worked in a public school. We're not bringing money in. We're doing a job that we are paid to do, and we've agreed to do that job for a given salary. If we're not happy with that salary, we should leave and find something else to do, which I have done. Pro athletes, on the other hand, when they do their job, they're bringing in a lot of money, and their salaries reflect that. When they are doing their jobs very well, they're winning games, they are bringing fans into stadiums, people are buying tickets, people are buying concessions, people are buying merchandise. Because of all that, they have a higher earning potential. Similar to someone who creates something, products, businesses, there's unlimited potential there to bring in millions and billions of dollars. So yes, there are jobs that are worth that much. The second category of these wealth hate comments that I saw in this comment section have to do with wealth inequality and how wealthy people treat other people, particularly in terms of how they use their money to give back to other people. So here are a couple of comments. One person said there should not be millionaires and billionaires in a society where there are people in extreme poverty. Another commenter said, I hate all rich people. There are homeless people dying in the streets, but they really think they need that 12-bedroom house. Another comment said, I'm pretty sure the billionaires got there by exploiting people. I think across the board, wages need to increase for every other class, and the rich need to take less of the pie. The gap is huge and needs to close so the lower and middle class get a larger slice of the pie and can afford a home, food, car, healthcare, childcare, without having to struggle so much. So I think this is a lot more understandable. It's a relatable concept to a lot of us because, especially now, post-COVID and all the repercussions of that, so many people are struggling, and people are really frustrated that they're struggling and that there are other people who aren't. And people are frustrated that the people who have so much money and that wealth gap has gotten bigger and bigger. But the people who have so much money aren't sharing it, or at least as much as they think they should be. Trickle-down economics isn't working, and wealthy people should just give away the money they earn, right? Now, personally, I believe if you earn money, it is yours to do whatever you want with. I think if I had that kind of money that I would certainly do a lot of good with it, but I would also have a lot of fun with it and do a lot of things for myself, because you do only have the one life, at least that's what I believe, so why not enjoy it? Another thread that I saw through these comments was that people kept saying these mega millionaires and the billionaires exploit people to get where they are. And I know that that is a common theme among how people, a lot of people anyway, think about people who are very rich. And it is certainly true for some of those people, but it's not true for a lot of them. In the comment section, some people pushed back on this exploitation thing, and they were like, well, what about an author who has done really well? What about the A-list actors and actresses, musical performers? I can't help but think about Taylor Swift, because she's been all over the media lately with the Eras tour, and it's like the biggest selling tour of all time, biggest money-making thing. So she's raking it in, right? What has she done to exploit people? Like, yeah, I've heard the tickets to her concerts can be super expensive, hundreds if not thousands of dollars, but it's not like she's selling food and water and shelter here, basic needs. This is, going to a concert is a luxury. It's not a need. So if you don't want to pay that much for the tickets, you don't have to go. And if you can't afford those tickets, you also don't have to go. Like, she doesn't owe you cheap tickets. She's not your friend. She's out there doing her job to earn a lot of money, and she won't reach her full earning potential if she sells tickets for a lot less than she could, right? She's running a business, not a charity. And people keep complaining about those ticket prices, but her shows also keep selling out. And that reminds me of handbag companies and how people keep complaining that they raise their prices, and some people have stopped buying them. I've heard a lot of people have stopped buying Chanel because of their price increases, but Chanel still sells bags, don't they? And a lot of people complain about Hermes, but they're still selling Birkins and Kellys, despite all the things they do in terms of that game you have to play to get one, and how expensive they are. Apparently those methods are working for them, so why should they stop? When they stop working, that's when they'll change their strategies. But again, as a business, it's their job to earn as much money as they can bring in. And in my opinion, it is not the responsibility of people who have earned their own wealth to solve the problems of the world. Sure, it would be great if they did, or if more of them did, because some definitely do. A lot of wealthy people do a lot of good with their money, but I'm not going to get upset with anyone for choosing to do whatever they want to do with the money that they've earned. I also hear people complaining, like this person said the people on the Titan went on a boat ride, which really minimizes what they were actually doing. Or people complain about some of these billionaires going to space, right? Building rocket ships and going to space. And when I think about this, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not familiar with that, it's a pyramid where on the bottom you have the very basic needs like food and water and shelter. And then as it goes up, you get to the top, where as those bottom needs are met, then you have other things you want and other things you want. And at the top is the most aspirational stuff that humanity can come up with. Things like building a rocket ship and going to space, exploring, doing things that are certainly not necessary, but that are more in touch with the higher levels of human accomplishment and human desire and dreams. And that's where some of these people are, because they've been able to meet all the other needs because they have the money, the resources to do it. And I think that some of the people who complain about billionaires going to space or taking a boat ride. And by the way, we get a lot of really valuable information as a group of humans when we have people who are able to do these kinds of expeditions and other higher level things. But I think some of the people that put that down are maybe people who are struggling and they're just resentful that there are people who don't have to. Now, the third category that I saw in these comments about wealth hate had to do with wealthy people being out of touch, entitled, and privileged. So again, the question is basically, do you hate wealthy people? That's what the person posed. Here are a couple more responses to that. This person says, I do. The ones who are so clueless about what it means to actually want or need the most basic things. So that's what we just talked about with Maslow. Another person said, I think what I dislike is the absolute disregard of privilege and how they unknowingly subject others to their ignorance. I grew up listening to ungrateful entitlement from rich, middle-class kids my age. It put a deep anger in me toward them. I had nothing. I didn't even eat unless I was at school. So listening to them be upset about the wrong phone or shoes, I've carried that with me into adulthood, and I don't really care for anyone who isn't humble or grateful for all they have. So again, that ties right back into what I was just saying. If you're struggling, then that can lead to resentment for people who aren't. And another person said, I hate rich people for a lot of reasons. I used to work for investors and a lot of rich people, and they were so out of touch, greedy, and selfish. I think social media has helped expose it. I can't stand the Kardashians and how much money they have while people are literally dying. Children go hungry every night across the world, and yet they'd rather buy concrete statues of peacocks for $500,000 just because, or have 4 pools that they don't even use. Again, that ties back into everything I just said. So I can understand how seeing people spend money in frivolous ways like that, when you know that that money could go toward people who need it for basic things, how that can be offensive and how it can seem obscene. My view on it is that it's really just a different level of normal. So to take this down a notch, it's kind of like one person saying, yeah, I always have beer in my fridge. Not an abnormal thing for a lot of people. And then somebody else saying, yeah, I always have a bottle of champagne in the fridge. It's the same thing. It's just a different income bracket. Look, I'm not a fan of the Kardashians either. I have no idea what these peacock statues this person is talking about are, the 4 pools or whatever. But they're in a different income bracket than most of us. They can afford to spend their money on fun, frivolous things. Just like some of us can afford to spend our money on fun, frivolous handbags. And other people can afford to spend their money at different levels on things that are fun and frivolous to them, even though they may not be hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. They're just different income brackets. Now, when you get back to the point about they're spending that money when there are people starving and dying, well, you already know that I feel like people can do whatever they want with their own money. So I would say then, if you are concerned about these people who are starving and dying and whatever else, what are you doing to help them? Are you selling off everything that you own that's not a basic need and donating that money to help other people? Because that's basically what you're asking of people like the Kardashians in this example. Like, I do get what you're saying here, but again, we don't know what they're doing with their money, what not just Kardashians, but wealthy people are doing. They can do frivolous things. It's okay. They can also be doing other things that you don't know about that make positive contributions in the world. You have no idea. A lot of people talked about wealthy people being entitled. That's something that I have been wanting to do in a separate video too, so I'm not going to talk about that here. Privilege, though, that's something, because some of the comments that I saw were from people complaining that privileged people complain about things. And I see this a lot in our handbag videos that are on YouTube and people in the comment sections and handbag forums where, let's use Chanel again as an example, people complain about quality issues with Chanel, or there'd be, small imperfections where somebody's like, I don't even see what you're talking about, and somebody else is like, oh yeah, I see, that little thing is stitched crooked and you should send it back. And sometimes when I see YouTubers post videos about these things, they preface, and I haven't seen it so much lately, but a few years ago, they prefaced by saying, I know this is a first world problem, but here we go. That has always bothered me. I know I've mentioned that before. It doesn't matter if it's a first world problem. It's still a problem. If you buy a handbag at Walmart or at Chanel, you're paying money that you have worked hard for, and you should receive in return a product or service, whatever it is, that is as promised. If there's a problem, no matter how expensive it is, it's okay to complain about it. It's okay to send it back. It's okay to expect that that problem should be fixed. And the thing about privilege and being out of touch, just like the idea of wealth itself, it's very subjective. So to one person, wealth could be having a roof over your head. To another, wealth could be, oh, I'm not really wealthy with all these millions, I have to be a billionaire. There are all levels in between. Privilege too. Some people could look at America and say all Americans are privileged and they don't even realize it, and it's really annoying when they come to my country and they behave this way and they don't realize what I'm going through and how much better their lives are. It's exactly the same thing as using the example of a wealthy person maybe not realizing what somebody who's not so wealthy is going through, because that person has a baseline level of a lifestyle that they are used to. And maybe that's all they've ever known. So that's their normal. Whereas to someone else, that's not normal, it's privilege. And what I kept coming back to in all this is that the root of the wealth hate is really about resentment. It's about the different perspectives of normal and about people who've had to struggle resenting people who haven't. Here's some quotes that illustrate this. This person says, I hate rich people. It's hard not to when both the poor and working class are the people who make rich people their money. It isn't fair that I grew up with broken windows, food bank or no food, missing out on a lot of childhood experiences like field trips. I even resent middle class people, and I can't help it. I try not to, but the trauma from growing up poor is real. Another person said, maybe not hatred, but I have some strong jealousy issues. I've broken some generational curses and have raised myself up. But when I see someone rolling in money who's been given good opportunities, I can't help but wonder where I would be if I had had that kind of resources and support. Now me, having grown up poor myself, and pulled myself out of it, I relate to both of those comments so much. When I was younger, I never had wealth hate, but I definitely had resentment sometimes for people who never had to struggle, and especially for people who seemed to be so far beyond that, who seemed to have a lot of money and never had to worry about it. So I do get it, but that doesn't make it right. My perspective has definitely changed on that as I've gotten older and I've been exposed to more. When I was growing up, I only knew poor people. I didn't know anyone who had a career, a successful life. I had no role models for that. But as I have pulled myself out of that, I've gone to school, I've been educated, I've met more people, been exposed to more in the world, my perspective on that has changed. I don't have any resentment. I've come to a point where throughout all those experiences, I have met and got to know a handful of people that I would consider wealthy. I don't know that they would, because of course it's all relative. But the people that I know are all self-made. Now that's a problematic term because everybody has help. But they're people who didn't come from money. They've been able to build their own success over their lifetimes. And there are also people who I know give back in positive ways, but they also use money to buy things for themselves. I mean, we've always heard this term, money doesn't buy happiness, but I disagree. Money, I mean, we know this, money buys so many things that help make you happier because they help make your life easier, more secure. It gives you more freedom, not only to do fun things for yourself, but to make sure that you're taken care of and to make sure the people you love are also taken care of, and to be able to give back. Because can we please keep in mind, so many of these comments just refer to wealthy people as billionaires, and it's kind of dehumanizing. Instead of saying people with so much money or people with wealth or wealthy people. It takes the person out of it, and it just groups people into this bunch based on how much money they have and throws a bunch of generalized assumptions on them. But let's keep in mind that these are people. I believe people are inherently good, no matter how much money they have. And most people do want to help other people, and they also get personal joy out of that. And some people do so much good with their money. A lot of people do. Now, the last part of this original question, the do you hate rich people question, that person ended their question by saying, especially those who were born into it, born into money, and didn't deserve it. And I thought that was interesting because they're basically saying that you need to earn money. It's one thing if you earn it. It's worse if you're just born into it and you haven't done anything to bring that money into your life. And that brings me back to the America example. That's kind of like saying, you know, I hate all Americans, especially the ones who were just born there and didn't do anything to deserve the privilege of being born there. And I would say it's not the child's fault. They didn't choose to be born or to be born into money or into poverty or anything else. So why be upset with the child? The school where I taught for the last 10 years or so, it was a unique population of families and students because we had a big wealth gap. We had students who were living in poverty, who were in apartments that didn't have internet or not always electricity or water or clothes or school supplies. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the school was located in the middle of 3 pretty wealthy neighborhoods. So we had a lot of kids that came from wealthy homes and had all kinds of resources. And by the way, our parents were very generous. It was a very well-funded school. They did a lot for other students. They made sure that there were students that, you know, one person earlier mentioned they couldn't go on field trips. All of our kids could do whatever they wanted, even if their family didn't have the money for it, because other families would donate and make sure that everyone could participate and money just wasn't an issue. So at school, I didn't see wealth inequality that often because of that. However, it was very interesting during COVID. There was a year, almost a full year, where families had the option to send students to school or they could do remote learning. So we teachers were doing both at the same time. We had kids on the computer and we had students in the classroom. It's very strange. But what was really interesting about the kids that were on the computer when they turned their cameras on is seeing where they were, the environments, because some of them you could tell they were sitting in like their living room of their apartment and there were siblings doing school on their computers next to them, so they didn't have a private room where other sound and other people wouldn't interfere, a distraction-free environment. They didn't have that. And then there would be other people who were filming from the porch of their vacation home in Colorado or at the beach somewhere, wherever it would be. So you really saw those discrepancies during that time. And I also definitely overheard comments from students from time to time. Some of the students from wealthier families talking about the Maserati their dad just bought, or the third Porsche they just bought, or the second home they just bought. Or I remember distinctly there was this one student who was absent one day, and I asked the other students, her friends in class, if they knew where she was. And her father had taken her to Paris for the weekend for her birthday. And that wasn't the first time it happened. And this was middle school. And then there are other kids who don't have pencils. So the inequality is there, and you would hear it in comments sometimes, like the kids knew. But it's all about how you're raised. There were students who would talk regularly about all the lavish things that they had at home, or how much money they had in their own personal banking accounts in middle school because their families paid them an allowance. Some kids, though, worked. There was this one kid that built computers and sold them, and he had money because of that. Of course, it takes money to do that. And then there were other kids who I also knew to be wealthy based on what I saw of their surroundings during COVID. Well, their families are wealthy, not them. But you would never know it if I hadn't seen that. Because if you have it in your head that kids who are born into money are a certain way, they're entitled and blah, 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 and they're jerks, you wouldn't know that this kid had come from money because she was one of the nicest, kindest, most giving, generous students that I've ever had over 12 years. And based on what I saw at this school, that was not uncommon. In fact, it was more the norm than the other end of the spectrum. We had those kids too. Definitely had some of those kids. But again, that has to do with how they're raised not with the kid itself. So it was hard to hold it against them, and they'll learn. They'll get to a point, they'll meet some people, their world will expand, and they will learn their lesson. So I think my takeaways from all this that I read and all the thinking about it that I did, I mean, I already did not have any ill feelings toward wealthy people, but even more so now. It's kind of like when you get mean comments on the internet, it's not about you, it's about the person leaving the comment. I just keep coming back to that resentment thing for people who are in a different place and don't have the same struggles. That's just how the world is, right? Like, it's always going to be that way. It's always been that way. Not really anything we can do about it, right? Except try to work hard and create things and raise yourself up instead of tearing other people down. Thank you so much for watching today. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.